So tonight we're going to map out how we will fight, protect, and build power differently depending on whether you're in a red state or a blue state. We'll talk about adapting our actions to the political reality. And blue state is one where the governor, attorney general, and typically both senators are Democrats. And a red state, of course, is where those roles are filled by Republicans. Not every state falls into one of those categories, so you can pick and choose from the actions we'll give you tonight. Let's start with people who live in Democrat controlled or blue states. When we talk about adapting our actions to political reality, this is the reality in blue states. We are not fighting just to stop harm. We are fighting to lock in protections, actively defy federal overreach, and prove that a different vision of government actually works. Blue states are not sidelines or places to sit idle. They are one of the strongest fronts of resistance we have. In blue states, the question isn't, can we act? It's, are we demanding enough? Democratic governors, legislators, and attorneys general have real power. They have, sorry, I need my glasses. I forgot to make my font bigger. They can pass stronger laws, refuse to implement harmful federal policies, sue the federal government, and they can make their state safer for people targeted elsewhere. But they don't do these things automatically. They do them because organized people push them to. So first, push protections further, even when you already have them. Many blue states already have protections for immigrants, LGBTQ plus people, voting rights, or reproductive care, but those protections can always be strengthened. For example, in Colorado, the legislature passed Senate Bill 276, which greatly expanded protections for immigrants, touching on everything from information sharing with federal agencies to criminal proceedings for undocumented defendants. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because people organized, they showed up and made it clear that those protections mattered. A key tactic here that we often overlook is to thank our elected officials when they do the right thing. Thank you calls, emails, and public recognition matter. They reinforce behavior and signal that people are paying attention. Even when politicians show up in imperfect ways, like attending a protest mainly for a photo op, acknowledge it and push them to do more. Visibility plus pressure works. Second, push your state to directly defy harmful federal policies. Blue states can and should go against federal actions when those actions are not in the public interest. Some concrete examples are when federal agencies made COVID vaccines harder to access, Colorado expanded access, allowing pharmacies and doctors to provide pharmacists to provide vaccines without prescriptions. And when SNAP benefits were paused last year, Colorado stepped in with state funding for food banks. And these actions saved lives, and they happened because state leaders chose to act. The action step here is simple and powerful. Call or write your state legislators or governor and specifically ask them, what federal policies are you prepared to resist? Where will you opt out? How will you protect residents if federal funding is threatened? Or ask them to take specific action to defy harmful federal policies. Third, activate your state attorney general. This is one of the most underused levers we have. Your attorney general is the lawyer for your entire state. In blue states, AGs can and do sue the federal government. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser has sued repeatedly when federal actions threaten jobs, public safety, or state authority. At last count, it was over 24 lawsuits since Trump took his seat on his pretend throne for his second term. One example was suing over the attempted relocation of Space Command, which would have harmed both workers and national security. And this matters because lawsuits slow implementation of harmful policies, force transparency, buy time for organizing, and sometimes stop damage entirely. So the action here is to call or write your attorney general and ask them to commit publicly to legal resistance when the administration withholds funds or targets your state. Next, redistricting. This is critical. Blue states cannot sit back while red states gerrymander aggressively. While it's too late for most, if not all states who aren't already in the process to redistrict for 2026, it is possible. There are 15 Democratic trifecta states where Democrats control the governorship and legislature. And most of these states have the power to act now in order to redistrict for the 2028 elections. The ask is clear. Demand responsive, fair redistricting. Demand public commitments from governors and legislators. Attend town halls, write letters, and organize pressure. If blue states fail to act, they are effectively allowing minority rule nationwide. Redistricting is not abstract. It determines who has power for the next decade. Fifth, make blue states safe and visibly better places to live. Blue states can sign executive orders to protect residents. Democratic governors can issue orders that directly counter federal actions, like establishing protections for immigrants, expanding access to reproductive health care, or enforcing strict environmental standards that defy federal rollbacks. They can also form alliances with other states. Urge your governor and AG to join regional compacts on issues like climate change, data privacy, and healthcare. These alliances strengthen state policies and they create a unified front that makes it harder for Trump's administration to dismantle progressive gains. They can use their economic leverage. States with significant economic power, like California and New York, can use their influence to counter Trump's agenda by setting procurement and contracting standards that prioritize civil rights, environmental responsibility, and fair labor practices. Blue states can refuse to do business with companies that don't uphold progressive values, using their economic might to challenge Trump's policies. They can decline to implement federal policies in their states. Lots of federal programs or legislation are actually dependent on the states implementing them. Your governor could decide or could decline a pot of money earmarked for a police crackdown on peaceful protesters, or refuse to participate in a program that would require granting massive loopholes to giant corporate polluters. If there's an opt-out, they should be using it. They can also implement sanctuary policies for out-of-state visitors. Blue states can enact laws that protect individuals traveling from red states to access services restricted under Trump's policies, like reproductive health care or gender-affirming care, reinforcing blue states as safe havens for civil rights, creating a direct challenge to Trump's efforts to impose regressive values nationwide. And they can also create legal funds to protect residents. Democratic states can set up state-funded legal defense funds to help residents directly affected by Trump's policies, such as immigrants at risk of deportation or families losing health care. These funds signal that the state is ready to stand up for its people, regardless of federal threats. So if you're in a blue state, your role is not to wait or watch. Your role is to push harder, demand more, use state power aggressively, and build a model of governance that people elsewhere can point to and say, that's what we want. Blue states are not just a shield, they're a launch pad. And you can push for these changes using a variety of tactics. I'll put links in the chat to recordings on our YouTube channel for various types of actions. So you can organize a traditional rally with or without a march, organize an overpass protest like the one we're hosting tomorrow on the Highlands Bridge at 3 p.m., organize political theater, a car parade, a banner drop, or even take out billboards with messaging you want your legislators or fellow citizens to pay attention to. One of the links I just put in the chat goes to Blit Billboards. That's the company we used for No Kings 2. You can set a daily budget, like $30, and it will flash your design on a digital billboard a certain number of times per day. You can also become a legal observer or a safety marshal or take on other volunteer roles at protests. You can start your own activist group. Indivisible has tons of resources for that on their group support hub. You can sign up with groups that do get out the vote campaigns to assist them with voter registration. The Colorado Democrats are launching an initiative to use relational organizing through people's existing social groups to share messages about voter participation, candidates, and more. Here's the link for, oh, wrong link. But the link for that is called relational organizing in the batch of links that I just posted. But what I just put in there was the link to volunteer with Solidarity Warriors. It's especially important with the midterms this year is to volunteer with organizations or campaigns that focus on progressive values or candidates in your state. We'll have plenty of phone and text banking opportunities as well as canvassing events to point you to as the midterms get closer. You can also volunteer with Solidarity Warriors. You can volunteer for specific events, or you don't have to be the boots on the ground type because we also have plenty of things you can do from home in between events. So click on that link to volunteer with Solidarity Warriors. And now Morgan will talk about how we support communities and resistance in red states. And then we'll discuss how these two strategies work together.
Thank you, Tiffany. Obviously, I am Morgan. If Tiffany is the ringleader, I am the sideshow barker. Before I get into the meat of it, I do two things every week. The first is I give you a very specific to-do action that you can go out and do. This week, we're talking about overpass protests. They are they are proliferating. There are more of them, and they are a very fun way to go out and show a large number of people during rush hour what issues are important to you. And you can do everything from one issue at a time to resisting the administration. All of it is possible. If you don't have a place where an overpass protest is planned near you, go ahead and plan one yourself. They're really easy. You don't need permits. You don't need money. You make some signs out of big letters. If you go back a couple of weeks in our YouTube channel, we have an entire video on what they're doing, planning those here. So your to do this week is to go out or plan an overpass protest. The second thing I always do is highlight something that people may have forgotten about, may not be front and center in people's attention. This week, this actually came out a few weeks ago, but we didn't have time to talk about it. The Eurasia Group came out with their 2026 threat assessment. What are the biggest threats to the world? And I'll put a link to that assessment in the chat of what's going on right now. The number one threat to the world is political revolution in the United States. So let that settle in a little bit, think about it, and let it show you where we are in the world at this time. So with that being said, I'm going to go on and get started. So first of all, I spent 30 years living in a red state. That's where I started organizing and have a pretty good amount of experience. getting into what you can do blue in a red state or blue in a red area of a blue state. So the first thing is the environment. So actions need to be tailored to the immediate world around you. So your situation matters a lot more than it does in a blue state because there's going to be more conflict and more disagreement. Many of the actions may look the same, but the response and outcome will likely be drastically different. So, unlike in blue states, consider yourself in a hostile environment and be careful what you say and who you say it to. It may feel very natural to overshare, but there might be real world consequences, including being fired, being arrested, being surveilled by the government in ways that you wouldn't normally and in times that you normally wouldn't. Um, so it's important to keep that in mind and understand that. Um, there are three main areas or people involved. Legislators, police, and the general population will react very differently in red states. So one of the main goals will be to change people's opinions and behaviors. I'll get more into that later. As far as your legislators go, expect it to be harder to get meetings with legislators. If you're lucky, the representative won't recognize you as an organizer and will give you the respect due a constituent who's visiting. If they do recognize you, they can make it very difficult. They can, refuse to meet with you, cancel at the last minute, and just flat out refuse to the point that they will lock the doors and not even let the mailman in so they don't have to talk to you, even if you're a constituent. But one of the things you want to do is ask questions that get them on the record opposing things they are supposed to be for. Say, not intervening in foreign wars is a very common thread from Republicans. Not raising taxes like tariffs are things that, are supposed to be core values to Republicans, but Republicans are supporting them now. Point that out to them. Back them into a corner where they either need to defend the undefendable or agree that it is wrong what the administration is doing. If you're in a red state, why are there no ICE agents here? Is there no immigration problem here? It's not the same because they're being used to target blue states. I know there are ICE agents operating in red states, but there's a reason it's not the same, and there's a reason they're not sending the National Guard in, despite the fact that immigration problems, to the extent that they do exist, have always been more common in places like Texas and Florida than they ever have been in places like Minnesota and Oregon. Even if they do agree with you, even if they concede that what you're saying is true, they may not be able to admit it publicly because their party and their loyalty to Trump means they can't say those parts out loud. And you want to get them into a position where, one, it is safe for them to say out loud and break with the administration, and two, that they can otherwise be held accountable for violating that. A perfect example of this, like I said, for a long time, I lived in Ann Wagner's district in Missouri, and she is famous. Her signature issue is sex trafficking. It should be something that's bipartisan. It shouldn't be, something that's hard to deal with. But how do you support somebody that's hiding the Epstein files? How do you support somebody who's a pedophile protector and still say your signature issue is sex trafficking? Call them out on these things and make them explain how these two impossible things can inhabit their brain at the same time. Bring actual constituents who live in their districts. A lot of times, Republicans will be more likely to meet with people who actually vote in their district, whether they're Republican or Democrat, than they would somebody who is particularly progressive coming from outside their district. If you have people who actually live in the district, not only coming with you, but ideally leading the meeting and conversation, you will be more likely to get time to speak in front of them. Do not be surprised if they do recognize you, that you come in and you don't meet with the representative, that you meet with the lowest intern on the totem pole. That's okay. If you get in and you get the message, it will get passed on to the representative eventually. Whether they do something with it or not is unlikely. But the point is that you're getting in and you're making them hear the people that they're representing saying something and wanting change. Be specific about the issues that you bring to them and give them a path to helping without crossing their party lines. So, healthcare subsidies are a perfect example of this. The vast majority of ACA subsidies went to red states, and a vast majority of social programs like SNAP and Medicaid and Medicare go to red states. And if you give them a way to support ACA subsidies, but not at the same time be crossing the party, it's a very nuanced way to make a difference and make a change and get something done. When all else fails, and it probably will, publicly demonstrate the harm their position is causing. How you do this will depend on your group and the issues that are important to you. But one example is you can use coordinated social media campaigns. In these days, reviews and comments on things that people post on social media are extremely important, especially to public figures like representatives. So if they're getting negative comments on their posts over and over and over again, at the very least, they'll stop posting about it because it makes them look bad, because it makes it look like there's this huge upswell of disagreement with their position. Hopefully, they will go ahead and change their positions when it comes to that. There are other things that you can do. We started doing empty chair town halls in 2017, long before it became a thing. And what that does is, you don't need a large group of people. You can get 100, 200, 300 people in a room at a rec center to bring, and invite the representative to come and speak about the issues that are important to you. And then when they don't show up, give a full presentation about the issues that you want and the solutions that you want to share them with. It is great publicity. It looks great. It's easy for the news to come and cover, and they're generally fairly inexpensive to put on. Things like that can really put people in a tough position when Republicans in red states are doing things that are hurting their own constituents. The police, as a general rule, the police are not your friend. This is doubly so in red states. Many people are conditioned, indoctrinated, and taught from a very young age to be red or blue. Therefore, many of the police in red states will be right leaning, and many of the police in blue states will be left leaning. And this will influence how they interact with you. Expect police in red states to tolerate your First Amendment presence as the best case scenario. If they just leave you alone and let you have your event, I would say that would be a success. Limit interactions with them, since more likely than not, they will lead to trouble. If you don't have to engage with the police, don't. Especially because quicker escalations to arrest and violence by the police in red states is a real thing. So if you are in a situation where, something may be a little sketchy or questionable, don't give the police an opportunity to act by engaging with them. And that's why it's important to remain nonviolent because a lot of the police officers in these red states literally could be looking for a reason to bust heads at protests. Don't give him that reason. If there is violence, it needs to be seen that it is being perpetrated by the police and not the protesters. And this will make the news even in red states. Um, it is very visually striking, and news media in red states, even the Fox affiliate in red states, will air that type of video. Finally, when it comes to the general population, the people, the hearts and minds that you want to change, understand that you are not alone. There are many Democrats and sympathetic people in your area. They may just be afraid to come out and say it because of how red the area is. People are very uncomfortable being honest about what their beliefs are. But everywhere in this country, there are Democrats and there are progressives. And one of the key things is to organize with them. But when it comes to the general population in red states who aren't the outliers, understand that these people are MAGA first, Republican second, and American third. And despite what they'll tell you, keep that in mind because their actions speak louder than their words. In many red states, the gun laws are very different. And if you live in a state with loose gun laws, expect many people in the general population to be armed and treat them as such. There is no sense in getting shot over a political disagreement. Also, don't expect the same size crowds as you see in blue states. There may be tens of thousands of people coming out in some states, but where you are, 100 people might be a good turnout. Don't be disappointed by that, because what you're going to do is start with a small group of like-minded people and start changing minds. And as you do that, your crowds will start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Do not minimize how hard that task is. Like I said, these are people who are conditioned from birth to have these beliefs, and they are MAGA first before anything else. And that's the hard nut to crack. But I'll talk about that a little bit later and how you can do that. One of the things to consider doing in red states is use the petition process. In a lot of red states, people still know what's good for them. But if it has a D next to it, they'll never vote for it. But time and time again, when there's good policy that helps working people and working poor, it can be passed through a ballot initiative. And this is things like expanding Medicaid, legalizing marijuana, even abortion in some cases can be passed by ballot initiative in red states because that's what the people actually want. And, it's a good way to get progressive things into law that would never pass a Republican legislature. Keep in mind, there are many Republican legislators that are actively trying to curtail this. So even though the idea of ballot initiatives actually came in a lot of cases from the right wanting to pass things in blue states, in red states where they exist, blue activists can use them to get things done. And, now they are trying to curtail that when it doesn't suit their purposes. Don't expect people's hearts and minds to change overnight. This is where we get into how do we get those people to come over to our side. Like I said, these people have spent their entire lives coming to their conclusions. A single phone call or an hour-long meeting will be unlikely to undo all of that indoctrination. The first thing you need to do is create trust and friendship. People generally assume you are like them and believe like them at first. Establishing trust and friendship is very important so that they will listen to what you have to say with a more open mind later on. This isn't to suggest lying, but leading with your political views may make it a very short friendship or date. If you ask, give a truthful answer, but do it in a soft way that isn't going to trigger somebody to be defensive and instantly brand you a left-wing socialist that, now all of the horrible things they say apply to you. And just like in any argument, if you start with something provocative, expect the person you are talking to tune you out and stop listening. So leading with the things that are going to be, make them see red is also going to be very counterproductive. This is a long-term project, and it's going to take step by step by step, leading them to where they should be. Once you've established a friendship at work or otherwise, begin to discuss topics from a position people might understand but haven't considered. Something like connect to ideals that they profess. The examples I have are from a few weeks ago with the Venezuelan boat killings. So, you know, ideas like the Constitution guarantees due process, even to people accused of drug crimes. Is blowing up a boat in the middle of the ocean where they're not even breaking American laws due process? How does that work? They haven't committed a crime yet, and we're killing them. According to maritime law, survivors who were surrendered are required to be rescued. We blew them up, literally. It was a second attack that killed survivors. How does that square with adhering to the rule of law in the United States and the maritime treaties that we have with countries around the world? And what does that mean when our sailors are in distress in other parts of the seas? Because that's why those laws exist. Because if you're stranded in a boat in the middle of the ocean and somebody doesn't come and rescue you, you die. Um, Finally, what if there were no drugs on those boats? If there weren't drugs on those boats, we just killed innocent people. How is that pro-life? I mean, connect these to things and concepts that they have in ideas that make them rethink their framework. And this is where the messaging is important, but so is how the message is passed. So how you say it is just as important as what you're saying. And over time, you will see people's minds start to change and open up a little bit. The next thing I'm going to talk about is surveillance and cybersecurity. It's important to protect yourself and your identity in these areas because as nationally more surveillance comes online, the government is being used to target activists all over the country, particularly in blue states. In red states, there are going to be no constraints. There are going to be no state governments protecting you. There are going to be nobody running interference from the federal agencies expecting more use of facial recognition, license plate cameras, and online surveillance, since the laws in these places are more law enforcement friendly. So it's even more important that we are careful when we're doing this, which means using encrypted messaging. And we had an entire meeting that we did on keeping yourself safe. So I'll put a link to that YouTube in so you can go and see what that looks like. And that gets into a lot more detail about how to keep yourself safe online during these times. Just know that it is likely to be used more in red states than it is in blue states because they will not have any qualm or any problem invading your rights and privacy. Also, connected to that is potential violence and de-escalation. it's important to have an emergency preparedness plan. And we did another um, meeting on that a little while ago about what to do if you need to get out of your house quickly. The example I'll use is I had a professor who was from Haiti in college, and his father was a political dissident, and the government was looking for him. And every night he had to sleep in a different safe house. And I said, how can you live like that? How can you go to a job? How can you raise a family? And he said, you can't. But you need to be prepared for when the police come and knock on your door. So it means being ready to bug out quickly, have a bag. Like I said, check the video that we did for more details on it because it took a whole meeting by itself. Um, have a network of safe houses or places to go so that you can be hidden and be safe from what's going on. And in red states, violence by police or even regular citizens is seen as more acceptable than it is in blue states. There may even be counter protesters cheering police beating protesters. Do not expect restraint and do not expect law to be a restraint on violence. Once the beatings start, they're not going to stop. So it's important to learn to de escalate things before they become violent. So we've done safety marshal trainings in the past, and the skill of being able to de-escalate a situation, whether it's with police officers, counter protesters, or even people within your own movement, is a very valuable skill here to avoid very negative consequences. There is no complete consensus on how to handle aggression and protect yourself from violence on the left. Our feeling is generally it is best to remain non-violent, which means not carrying anything that could be seen as a provocation. There are some people who suggest carrying defensive weapons like pepper spray can be useful. There are even some people who advocate carrying guns even if there is a non-violent commitment for self-defense. We do not believe that is a good idea. It is more likely to lead to violence and protesters getting injured and killed, but that idea does exist out there. So to wrap up, I'm going to bring this to positive actions and what results can you expect from that? So what can you do? Still plan protests, still plan actions. Sometimes a small but visible action in a deep MAGA area where it is not expected can be more powerful than a large protest in a big blue city because it shows penetration into areas that are supposed to be strongholds. And that can get more attention because now you're not just talking about the blue states with these big protests. You're talking about the heart of what is supposed to be MAGA country coming out and showing up as blue. So things you can do, I talked about the empty chair town halls and the overpass campaigns. Meet with your legislators, even if you get to the lowest staffer that they have, the intern whose job is to make photocopies, talking to them will get the message across. You are still their constituents. They are still, in theory, supposed to represent you. We talked about the social media campaigns. Tiffany talked about blip billboards. Blip billboards are fantastic because a lot of times you can get them up and going almost right away, even if it's a Republican leaning company that owns them, they can be out and be seen during rush hour before they'll have time to review it and take them down and tell you you can't put them up. They are very easy and inexpensive to do. A fantastic idea. Finally, have meetings, even if they're small, of like-minded people, because that becomes the core nucleus of the people that are going out and changing people's hearts and minds. And in addition to that, the camaraderie and energizes people who may feel despondent, like they're the only person in the world. And it's just having even two, three, five people in a group working together can bring power to people who would otherwise feel powerless. Finally, I talked about this. This is my favorite thing: run against Republicans. In a lot of these deep red states, Republicans are only afraid of a primary challenge. They know there's no way that a Democrat of any sort could get elected. And a lot of times, as Tiffany talked about, their districts are so gerrymandered that a Democrat would never have a chance. In that case, it's worth, if you can do it, running in a primary against these people. One, a lot of Republicans, if they don't have a primary, will continue to raise money and then use that money in general elections and use it to get people elected uh, in down ballot races and in more contested races. So it's drawing away resources if they have to even nominally send out um, mailings and phone calls and do commercials in a primary, but it also puts them in a position where they need to answer questions. Maybe you can get them to have a debate where they can go on record as supporting some of these really horrendous policies. And that by itself can be enough to make a difference, even if it's putting a couple of $100 into a filing fee and then doing all of the work yourself, or doing little or nothing more than being on the ballot, is still going to prompt them to do a lot of the work and use resources that they normally wouldn't otherwise. Ultimately, you may be able to beat them in a primary. And, then you really have made progress and gotten somewhere. So that is all I have to say about that. So at this point, I think we can go back and start answering questions.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
What's your question, Jeffrey?
By the way, Morgan, I sent you a question to the chat, to the private chat. I still don't know if Jim Costa, Adam Schiff, and Alex Padilla are against the bill too. They're Democrats from California.
Yeah, I saw you sent me that message. Did you see my reply? And this
I
is
did.
good for everybody. If you're not sure if your Democratic senators or representatives are demanding bigger changes to ICE than what have been proposed so far in order to fund DHS, what I would do is take their name and then add the words DHS funding bill. Google that and then click on the news category and see if any news articles mention them by name. Unfortunately, there is not a list that shows everybody.
I did do an AI search, and it did came out as saying it's a possibility that they might oppose the bill.
Yeah,
There
most
may not be a
Democrats
public
are,
record on whether they're opposing it or not. They
yeah,
may not
most
have come out and
Democrats
said.
as a whole, the Democrats have said, we're going to stand firm and not fund DHS. But the unfortunate thing is that ICE got like $70 billion, I believe, in funding through the big bill of bullshit. So I'm not sure what the leverage here is, other than they want to increase funding even more, and as well as other parts of DHS. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, it's 175 billion and he's just asking for another 500 billion. It's the highest, like it's more than several militaries around the earth combined. It's insanity. I just wanted to thank you guys so much, and Jeffrey, you're doing a good job, brother. Thank you
Maybe,
guys for being good to
Yeah.
Jeffrey. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
maybe we all should try to run for office. Maybe not, probably not to win, but winning would be good. But to try to spread the message that we're learning here.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea,
I
brother.
think it's, I was just going to say, I think it's called the health bill. And they've put in a bunch of stuff that, Dems want, like 4 to 5 billion for rural health spending. And it's all in that same bill, but it's called the health bill, not the DSI bill. So, anyways.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jen, you asked for more details about the blip billboards. Tiffany, do you want to talk about it or you want me to take that?
Yeah, I can talk about it. Also, for those of you, if you want to send me a direct message on Signal, I just dropped it in the chat. Um, I think it was Mary was asking about music in protest and wanting to get more involved with singers. So we just picked up a couple of speakers similar to the bridge trolls, so we'll have those for future protests. We got the knockoff version because we're not that rich, but I think they'll do just fine. We'll test them out tomorrow.
If it's loud, it's enough.
Yep. But there is a group called No Enemies. It was started by Johnny Five from the Flowbots, and they're a really cool group of protest singers. So if someone's interested in connecting with them, you can either send me a direct message on Signal to the ID that I just put in the chat, or you can click the link to join our Signal group that I'll drop in there. And then post in there that you'd like to connect with them. And I will get you connected. Jen, missed the beginning, but are you all going to the Bridge Troll thing tomorrow in Lodo? And we'll be there from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. to catch rush hour traffic. We are putting pressure on Key Lime Airlines to drop their contract with ICE. They have flown hundreds of deportation flights with immigrants in shackles. And Avelo Airlines just ended their contract with ICE, so we know that it's possible. So please join us. As far as Blit billboards go, it's a really cool company. It can sometimes be hard to get your design past their AI like approval system. So if it's giving you messages like we get politically negative a lot, even though it's not negative. So if it gives you messages and you can't get past the AI process, just email customer support and they'll review your design and they can help you out. But what you do is you go onto the website and then you set up a campaign. So you can search for billboards in a particular zip code or a state, or you can do a national campaign just to have the most impact. And I think you choose like what you want. Like, do you want the most views? Do you want people to buy something? There's different options. And then once you select the billboards that you want, you set a daily budget. So we usually do a daily budget between $30 to $50, depending on how long it's going to be running. And then you design your billboard. It'll give you the dimensions that you should design it for. Try to do it in a high resolution. If you have questions about graphic design for a billboard, feel free to email me. Morgan, can you drop my email in the chat? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
This is for Blit Billboards. Let me put their link in the chat. All right. So what it is it's a digital billboard. And based on whatever your budget is and which billboards you select, it'll flash your message for, I think it might be like 6 or 8 seconds, however many times your daily budget will allow. And we get usually like tens of thousands of impressions. And by impressions, I think that means like number of drivers driving by while your design is showing, usually over the course of a week with a daily budget of $50. So it can definitely be a very useful tactic.
And one of the things we did early on was teach people how to design memes and digital images. Then we turned those into stickers so that people could have those images in the real world and show that there's a movement. A lot of the design for the billboards is exactly the same way that you would design a flyer, but usually it's got a different aspect ratio to it, and you can design to that. But the process of putting one of those together is the same way that you would do a digital flyer.
And I'm still working on finishing those sticker designs, and there's only so many hours in a 50-hour day. But I'm going to put the ones that I have so far in the chat so you guys can check them out. These are based on ideas that this group came up with here, Solidarity Warriors. Were there any other questions you saw, Morgan?
I haven't seen, well, there's the music question that we touched on briefly. We did do a music event on January 6th, and we are hoping to incorporate more music in the future. But we will have to see how that goes. And to me, it's largely because people are asking for it. And if people want more music at protests, I'm happy to accommodate that. You're welcome.
Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, so is it worthwhile to call reps in other states? Target red
It,
states?
it is not. So they will completely disregard you if you are not a constituent. So some campaigns exist to send postcards to voters in red states. Let me see if I can find that link real quick and put it in the chat. It's a great idea, but unfortunately we've looked into it and they just don't give a shit.
Okay. And so what about letter writing?
Yeah, so letter writing is great. At least when I was a canvasser for the labor unions like 20 years ago, we were told that a handwritten letter to a representative or senator represented the opinions of 100 people because it takes more time to do that than just click and send a form email, or even make a phone call. So if you are up for it, handwritten letters can be helpful.
And the same with, it's not worth it sending it to the red state representatives, even a senator.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Tiffany, what is the name of the Flowbots group? You said that's an enemy of the
It's
state?
called No Enemies. And yeah, I can connect people with them if you join the Signal group. This link I'll put in the chat here, Sharon. This is the link for the postcard campaign that Field Team 6 does. There's actually a bunch of different ways that you can postcard. Um, I think that's the right link. Sally, go ahead.
When we were doing postcards, somebody was saying that rather than sending a handwritten anything to Washington, D.C., you send it to the local office and they'll get it sooner. Have you heard anything like that? Like if it goes to Washington, it takes them a month to get it. If you
Oh,
send it to a
okay.
local office, it, takes 2 weeks.
That
So
might make sense.
there are two parts to that. The first is the post office, right? If it's local, it usually gets there the next day or the day after. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it needs to go all the way to Washington, D.C., and that sometimes takes a couple of days longer. But you are correct. The volume of mail that comes into the Capitol is enormous, and it needs to go through the mail room and get sorted and then get to your legislator, and that can certainly take some time. So it is definitely going to be faster to send it to your local office. If the representative is in Washington at the time, they may not read it till they come back, but there will be a staffer there who will read it. And Tiffany,
Okay.
somebody asked if there is a video of the mock trial, and I believe it's being edited, correct?
Yeah, so it may be completely unusable. Unfortunately, the sound was really garbled. But we have a lovely person named Kevin, who I think is here, who offered to help us film it again in a studio or even at the Capitol again. So that is something that we are going to work on, is recruiting volunteers to make it happen again, probably at the Capitol. But I haven't even told the leadership team that yet. So now you know, Morgan.
All right.
So the next new Kings has not been announced yet. The only legitimate rumor I've heard is in the spring, which makes sense. But we won't know for sure until it's announced. I think we may take a leading role again. We have to talk about it amongst ourselves. Luckily, we do have a bigger leadership team this time because last time there were only three of us, and one of us was out of town. So Morgan and I basically organized No Kings too. We also work with a coalition of other groups, but we definitely took on the leading role last time, which I think some good things came out of it. But I also was working 20-hour days chained to my desk doing nothing but working on that protest for 2 weeks, which kind of hurts my paycheck and my sleep schedule. So we'll
It,
have to see what we can do.
it was a little traumatic, but it turned out good. And it
Yeah,
was fun at the same time, but there's definitely a question of do we want to put ourselves through that again? So
yeah,
yeah, and a lot of that is going to depend on things that we can't control. Who is putting it on, who else is going to be involved, and who's going to fill all of the roles that we need for a protest that big. So,
we'll definitely be a part of it. We just don't know if we'll be the leading organization this time.
right.
Thank you, Sean. I think it was an amazing success too. But we will see what our role is next time. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's Kai or Key about action on. I know that there is a call for actions at Target, Home Depot, and some other stores that are failing in Minnesota and statewide to, protect immigrants, or at least tell ICE to GTFO and not do raids there. So I have not heard that one way or the other. Laura?
Um, yes, I'm I'm tired, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, all balled up into one after today's events. But bottom line for me has been ever since following this lunatic and listening to all of his egregious actions, at what point do we put the pressure on to evoke the 25th Amendment? I'm tired of his bullshit. I'm so angry at this lunatic and for what he did today at the summit over Greenland and his behavior, his language, incorrigible. And it doesn't stop. We do all these actions and we're dealing with a bunch of Democrats that, I, you know, there's only a handful that have any gonus to stand up to this guy. And that's the
Laura,
reality.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm with you. As far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, the 25th Amendment should have happened in 2016.
So
Um,
what can we do to,
I'm getting there. For
okay,
the
I'm hanging with you, but I'm really, oh,
so to
aggravating.
invoke the 25th Amendment, it usually has to come from his cabinet and
Yeah,
go through Congress. That's not going to happen. He
yeah,
stacked it with loyalists. They're
right.
not going to turn against him. He's
That's
not
why
going
he
to be
did it.
removed. So what that does is, and we have been preaching this for a long time now, what we need to do is act as if we've got a fascist dictator that we need to remove from
I
power
do.
instead of acting like we need to win the next election and that's going to make a difference.
That's my whole point.
And that is what we are doing. And it is not, it looks simple, but it
I know.
takes a lot of, we started with movement building because we had no movement when he got elected the first time and then got elected the second time. So we are building that movement. Then we are putting pressure on the pillars of support that are keeping him in power. And then we are going to try and drive him out of power. And that is going to be the best way to get him out because then you're not going to have JD Vance coming in and you're not going to need to rely on Republicans supporting the idea.
I understand that, and I wholeheartedly am with you on this. This is not an easy task, but if we can rally and get enough people, and that's the operative, we're just not there yet. You know,
Yep.
when you have 58% in favor of what we're doing, only 58%, it's unthinkable in this country. But my biggest concern is on the world stage as well as what's going on domestically. He is what he did today with Greenland and the summit. He basically severed any kind of uh, relationship with NATO. I mean, NATO's over. You know, they're already saying, you know, get the hell out of here. Greenland, you have people there that are being terrorized and preparing for our takeover. Children are crying. Come on, this is the United States, and I don't want to be part of it. And I don't care if it's like maybe, you know, the protests or events we're having or the billboards we put up. We need to start sending this message. It's not us. Get him the hell out.
So I feel your frustration
Yeah, but I want
as
him
much
out.
as anyone.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to point out is one of their tactics is to flood the zone of horrible things so that it's impossible to react to all of them at the same
Of
time.
course.
And then you feel overwhelmed and demoralized. For example, who has heard of the Epstein files in the last week? It's almost like they've disappeared because everybody is talking about Greenland and NATO and everything else that is going on, but that doesn't mean they're any less important than they
No.
were a week ago.
Right.
But there are so many things going on, they're actually trying to distract you from the fact that what we need to be doing is resisting. That's the one thing that's important to focus on and put our efforts towards because we're not going to be able to stop him from whatever Michigan he's doing in Greenland, and we're not going to be able to stop him from destroying NATO. And
Unless we,
it's wasted effort to do that. But as long as we focus on what our goals are, it will help drown out some of that noise and focus our time and energy into something that will make some good.
okay, so here's the deal. The deal, I mean, for me, the world stage is watching. They're watching every move we make. And it's not that we've been totally ineffective. We have. We've made some gains. I understand this. but I think we're in such a critical place right now. We're not going to see major changes to ICE. That's not going to happen. Look what they just did with the appropriations bill, right? And
Mhm.
then it just keeps mushrooming, but it's the way he's conducting himself, his I call it atrophy of the brain. And um, I just I feel strongly that our messaging must include we want you out. We will fight however we can, or voice our opinion however we can, because fight's too
I
violent of a word. But
We can fight, we just do it
yeah,
non-violently.
I know.
yeah.
To about it should be posted on billboards. Get him the hell out. This is not who we are, and I don't know. It's just
We are putting billboards up to say that there are no kings. We have done exactly that. And we are right there with you saying that this has got to change and it's going to be the power of the people. It's not going to be the
that's
Republicans. It's not going to be the Democrats. It's
nope.
going to be us rising up saying we're not going to take it anymore.
Well,
And
maybe I have to wait till the spring and the weather gets better. But I went to hear Lech Walesa speak in September about the solidarity movement in Poland and how they pulled it
Mhm.
off. And it was one message, right? You know, we want a change in our government. We're not going to live under, a dictator, just like no kings, right? One big message. And they had the numbers, but in the meantime, and we're doing it to an extent. They had their small breakout groups, their rally, their organizers. But the difference between us and what they were doing in Poland, I'm so sorry, my dog, is that um, we're kind of going here, we're going there, and yet these things need to be brought out. And the big takeaway was that um, we need to do more towards shaking up the people than going after the leaders right now, in my opinion.
I like I said, I'm with you on this stuff. The problem we have is we can't even get the groups on the left to talk to each other, much
Yeah.
less speak with one voice. So, that's where the work starts. And then we move and we get bigger and bigger and bigger till we have a critical mass that makes this change.
Okay.
And
Oh,
that's where not having a movement to start with has put us behind and is taking more time than any of us are comfortable with to
right.
build.
So for some of these responses I'm getting or any, I'm on the action team or leadership team with Indivisible Lakewood. I'm
Mhm.
also working with Jeffco League of Women Voters and the Jeffco Dems. And that's a whole nother discussion on what's coming up with these primaries that I'm not going to go into tonight.
Yep.
But ugh. Okay. All right. I'm done. Morgan, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Laura.
I think
Remember,
Lauren's next.
remember your promise. And I
Yep.
wanted.
We haven't forgotten. We're still here.
Oh, Laura, I want to mention something. You said the court's full of his cabinet's filled with loyalists, or was it Morgan?
I said
Morgan.
that.
What? Oh, Morgan said that.
Yep.
I just using AI. I drafted an amendment saying that you can't the president cannot stack his cabinet with loyalists.
Well, I suggest you talk to your senator and your congressperson and see if you can get them to put it on the floor.
Yeah,
Aaron, I think you're next.
yeah. But how
Yeah.
can I?
Yeah, Jeffrey, we'll get to this in a minute. I just wanted to say that if Trump has a heart attack tonight, nothing will change tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're not fighting Trump. He's a system of the problem. We're fighting empire. just like Jesus Christ did, just like everyone throughout history has done. This is not, like a silver bullet's going to save us. This is collective action continued for the long run. And it may not be our lives, it may not be our kids' lives, but that doesn't mean we stop fighting. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
You're
You're
very
staying,
welcome.
Aaron, because I need you.
Okay.
I know, brother.
Bye.
I
Thank you.
I
All
agree
right.
with you.
Thank God be
I
with you,
actually say this.
Laura.
Thanks. I'm with you too. Let's go in peace.
All right, Deborah, I think you've got another question.
I just wanted to respond that I heard, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I heard the frustration. Was it Laura that was speaking?
Mhm.
I hear the frustration, and I think there's many people on the call that probably mirror that same frustration. And I think what I heard is she brought up, I'm going to say it a little differently, that there's issues and there's topics. And sometimes I think we get lost in the topics, all the different ways, all the different directions.
Please mute
Somebody's
yourself if
not
you're not
muted.
speaking.
I don't know whose mic is on.
Sorry, 1 second. I'll get it.
Okay. I think there's topics and there's issues. And when so much happens in one day and our attention gets pulled here and pulled there and pulled there, it's like we go from topic to topic to topic. And I think it's a good idea to stay focused on what the issue is. The issue is democracy. And all these other things are topics that filter into the higher umbrella of democracy. And I also heard somebody say, talk about messaging. I'm sorry I joined late, really late. I had other things going on,
That's okay.
but messaging across the board, what I'm seeing needs to be very succinct nowadays. If you think about the Republicans, they and the MAGA, they seem to really focus and align with sound bites of 3 or 4 words. Stop the steal. The election was stolen. Affordability is a hoax. Do you notice how short those are? And Democrats talk in long sentences and paragraphs. And what they say is very intelligent and on point, but I think it needs to be simplified in just sound bites for a lot of people. There's a lot of people, if they were on MS Now watching Rachel Maddow, they would not understand a thing that she was saying, nor would they understand when she says something facetious, because their brains are just organized in a certain way where short sound bites is something that they can grab onto and repeat. And if you talk to a MAGA person, at least me living in a red state, Ted Cruz is my senator. When you talk to someone who's MAGA, all they give you is sound bites in return. They so we can play that game. So I really loved when I was on this Zoom call and there was a process that everyone went through to create stickers. Those stickers are like sound bites, and I think whatever messaging comes up, the shorter the better. I really want to look into billboards for here in Dallas and some of the information I learned tonight. I might have to watch the replay to get the rest of it. It was good information for me, but I'm going to keep like something on a billboard really short, like Trump is lying. I hear no one say that. No one ever says that. They don't get it so succinct and to the point, and I think just when you have 50,000 people going down a highway here in the Metroplex, they've never heard those three words here, and so I think it 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 could have an impact. I read part of a fascism book that said if you take a lie and repeat it long enough, people will believe it. Well, you can take the truth, and even though people think it's a lie, if you tell them the truth and they get a repeat dose of it daily
That
on the way
quote
to
is from
work.
Goebbels, by the way.
Okay, so thank you, Jeffrey. I think that was Jeffrey.
Yeah,
Um,
it was.
uh, that we could play their game to reverse their propaganda. Just a thought. So I'm trying to think of sound bites. So if anyone has any good ones, please put them in the chat. I know we're all getting ready to go though.
I
So
really like that.
Yeah, I like that
I'll
too.
send out the list of sticker ideas that I'm still working on the designs for, but I'll send out the phrases that this group came up with. Because I agree with you wholeheartedly that the Democrats suck at messaging.
right.
So
And can I just
yeah.
say that Tiffany and Morgan, you do a fabulous job. And
Thank you.
this group has so many intelligent, thoughtful people. I really enjoy joining the Zooms weekly, even though I'm in a totally different state. I came to listen to the Zoom because I wanted to know what was going on in a blue state, because all I know is what's going on in a red state, So you guys have really been hit hard, and I just really feel for you guys. It seems like it's not as bad here, um, because it's everything is more accepted here, so there's not as much of an onslaught. Although we are fighting pretty hard for a detention center happening just north of Dallas. So, you know, they're getting ready to detain people and near Dallas. So, um, we're trying our best. There's like a dozen indivisible groups in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and everyone has their lane, and everyone is doing a different thing. So, I try to cue in on what everyone else is doing and just, plug in where I can here and there. So, but you guys are great. Know that you're doing a great job. Know that even if there are two people on a street corner protesting and you film that and put it on social media, 1,000 people will see it. So no effort that you do is ever in vain. All of it adds up. All of it adds up and becomes part of a whole that's bigger than our individual parts. So keep the fight going on. We're trying our best here in Dallas. So be good to yourselves, be kind, go out into the backyard and scream and vent it all out so you can come back and be centered again and put one foot in front of the other. I have lots of people in my life that say that their job is just to pray and to hold a space. And that's a little frustrating to me because I say to them, well, while you're praying, move your feet, go out and do something and protest or
Amen.
something,
I like that.
So
We should do more
know
than
that you're
protest.
know
We should also run for office.
Well,
know that you're doing such a good job, and I've benefited so greatly from being part of your Zooms. I've learned a lot, and I just know what great people all of you are. So thank you
Thank you
so much
so
for letting
much,
me be
Deborah.
thank
included.
you, Deborah. And to specifically answer your question, I was at a school district today, and they were telling me about how much their funding is being cut from the federal government, partly because we're in a blue state. In addition to that, Colorado is one of the states, 5 states, where the government is specifically withholding money for daycare for low income people, and they are withholding as much money as they can for whatever services they can because we are a blue state. And don't think that just because we're not in a red state that life's all of a sudden easy for us because we've got elected officials who are at least nominally protecting us. That doesn't make it easy. It's
Barely.
just
No,
a different kind of prosecution.
I think it's so much harder for blue states. I think he's really targeting you more.
He's pretty pissed that we won't let his pet treasonist out of jail, Tina Peters.
Yeah.
Right. Well, here we're facing a primary soon. We're on James Tallarico, so we're all trying to figure that out right now. They're both great candidates, and so we're having a hard time choosing.